I will call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have roll call, please.
Councilmember Waller?
Yes.
Selby?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Phillipson?
Yes.
Mayor East?
Yes. I will make a motion to add the AMVET's application for exempt permit at item G under consent agenda.
I will second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And we have citizen comments. Would anybody like to speak to the council that's not on the agenda? Okay. We have a public hearing tonight. Public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 117, an ordinance amending the city code pertaining to stormwater management and enforcement.
So I can't remember how we do this. Do we have a motion to have the second reading, then we'll have the public hearing?
I think we usually have the public hearing first, I think. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it doesn't matter which way you go.
Doesn't matter.
Chuck DeWolf is here from Bolton and Mink, and I'm gonna have Chuck come up and just, give you some information about why this is being done. We're working with Bolton and Mink to make sure that we're following all the rules and regulations for our, MPCA MS4 permit, so he's our expert.
All right, thank you. Well, just to give the council a quick update, the reason for the ordinance revisions tonight are a result of the city being part of the MPCA's MS4 program. It's a program, as you may recall, the city was forced to join or required to join back in 2015, and it had to do with your population being over 5,000 and you were on an impaired water. So that's really what originally triggered you. The MS4 program's been around a long time, but it's been for the bigger cities. It keeps ratcheting down notches. So at the time when you originally obtained coverage in through the 2015 permit, you were required to put a series of different ordinances in place to address stormwater management. And the PCA updates the MS4 permit every 5 years. So in 2020, the permit was reissued, and there's new requirements that come with the reissuance of the permit. So what we did then went through your existing ordinances and made sure that the ordinances now reflect what's in the new 2020 MS4 permit. So one of the things we're trying to do with the ordinances is reference the MS4 permit and the MPC's construction stormwater permit. So hopefully in the future we can minimize ordinance revisions. So by referencing rather than get into some of the specific details in the ordinance, we'll hopefully reduce the ordinance revisions in the future. So really what's in front of you tonight is just to make sure that what's in the city ordinances is meeting the MS4 permit requirements.
Okay, great.
Do we ever get out of the MS4? Oh, that's a no.
We're in it for life.
I don't believe that would be the case.
I don't believe it. Once you
started
get
at
in.
5,000 and you
It
said we
started
just
with the
dropped
bigger
below
cities, and then
5,000.
they started coming down the line.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if we'd ever want to be out of it, really. I mean, it is what it is.
yeah, because they'll come down to smaller cities under 5,000,
Yeah,
I would guess.
I definitely see the
The
day when it
requirements
starts
aren't.
going down further and bringing more cities into the program. So.
Sure. All right.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Chuck?
Was there gonna be any major differences for people selling salt that are under like a canopy now? That'll cover, they'll be fine with that as long as
As long
there's.
as it's covered, that should, they don't get into the details into the permit that it has to be, so large or
Just that it's covered.
it's covered, yeah.
Okay,
So
just-
it really shouldn't affect people. I think most stores and stuff store their salt undercover.
Yep.
And really, they're probably looking more for the salt that's not in a bag even, it sort of covers all salt, but, the salt blocks and stuff like that, making sure they're
That
covered.
makes sense, because I know that was a discussion at the planning committee, like what constitutes covering.
Yeah.
But if it's in a bag, covered. That's
Now,
covered.
really, most of them are still covered by some kind of structure
Yeah.
over the top.
But it doesn't have to be a structure that's 4 feet from the last
No.
pile of bags or so far
Correct,
up. It's
correct,
just
correct,
covered so it does not, if it rains, it would not
Yeah.
leak into the
correct.
storm. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Chuck.
Chuck. Okay, this is a public hearing. If you'd like to speak to this public hearing, please stand, approach the microphone, state your name and address. Okay, having no one speak to it, I will bring it back to the council for discussion on the ordinance.
I will move on this ordinance. Change the public hearing in a second. What do you want to put it as? Ordinance number 117, the amendment to the city code pertaining to stormwater management and enforcement.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think it's something that we have to do, I guess.
You know,
We'll have roll call vote, please, on the ordinance.
Councilmember Waller,
Yes.
Selby,
yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Phillipson,
Yes.
Mayor Heath,
Yes. Okay, so we have reading and approval of minutes from our November 8th regular meeting minutes.
I'll move approval of the regular meeting minutes from the 8th.
I will second.
Any discussion?
Just one thing, I rarely ever challenge anything, but I was reading through it, and I'm not sure, Ashley, if with regards to, in there either I said it, and I don't remember not saying it, but with regards to the landlords, when we were having that discussion about snow removal, it stated that landlords need to inform tenants of the snow alerts. That's what is in the minutes that I said, and I don't remember saying that, and I guess after thinking about it, I don't know if I would say that, but if I said it, I guess I said it, but I guess I don't really feel that it's the tenant's responsibility or the landlord's responsibility to let the tenants know. I think tenants themselves need to be responsible to be aware of snow alerts, unless I'm reading that wrong, but I know I did say something about they have to provide off-street parking. I think I did say that, but I guess I don't remember saying that, and if I did, I did.
I vaguely remember that was stated.
It
I'm
might
not
not-
sure if it was from you. It might have been from.
It probably was from me.
I don't remember saying that. I think it's the landlord's responsibility to tell the tenants, but, it's not a bad idea, I mean, as far as that goes, but I just don't want every landlord out there to be upset with me, because, a lot of these landlords have multiple properties, and I just not sure that that's something I would have said, but maybe I did, I don't know.
Well, I don't think you're saying it's the landlord's responsibility. Whoever said it just said it's landlords need to inform. I don't know if that's quite as,
Let
I
me
mean-
look at the minutes again.
as a
I
landlord.
think it says
we-
that I said that, but I don't know.
remember
No,
Kevin
it says
saying
stated the landlords need to inform tenants, and you use the word it's the landlord's responsibility. That's not how it reads in the minutes, so.
That's two different things.
Yeah,
Right.
so
Okay.
I don't know if it's that. I mean,
Communicating with your
Communicate, yeah.
tenants, yeah, just to.
Yeah, okay.
A good landlord is gonna
Yes.
communicate that, yes, you can't, when there's a snow alert, is how I took it and what I remember.
And that's how I
being-
take it too, Kevin. I don't take it as
Okay.
you're saying. It's their responsibility. It's more of just like, it'd be nice
Okay,
to inform.
then we're fine.
As a landlord, you'd want to inform your tenants of the snow alert. You can. It's not.
Okay, well, then we're fine, I just,
Okay, great. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye, opposed? Carried. And we have the same minutes for the condensed version.
I'll move approval of the condensed version of the November 8th meeting.
I will second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, there's.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yep.
Carried. And we have the November 14th canvassing meeting minutes. I will move approval of those minutes.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And we have the consent agenda consisting of audit of city bills, the final pay estimate for Yankee Ridge Road water main extension, pay estimate number 2 for the 6th Street improvements, gambling report from hockey, 9/21 tree board minutes, 10/12 library board minutes, and the added application for exempt permit from the AMVets. I will move approval of the items on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any discussion or questions, comments on any of the items?
Mayor, line number 3, Agri Lake Cooperative for $8,940.08. That's a fee for installing the cable for the automated weather observation system, that AOS system. I guess my question is, it's more of a question than anything, is this up and running now, Blaine? The AOS system?
No, the new one's not put in yet. They're running wire to be able to install this, but I think they had vendor issues with the company that's putting in the AWAS, so it's not in yet. And this will be reimbursed through a grant.
And then, I guess the second part of that question is, who's all gonna be connected to that system? Is it like law enforcement or dispatch, or I don't know how that all
No,
is tied in.
this is aviation.
It's just-
It's a weather system that flyers use.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with
Nope.
local reporting or weather-related things, okay.
Good questions.
All right, that's all I
Any-
had there.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the consent agenda?
I have a question. There was, our last meeting was a donation from the Lions for $2,500 for some matting around the playground equipment. Somewhere in here, I can't find it right now, but where the Eagles donated $2,500 for some matting for some playground equipment.
Correct, so this is the expense going out now, we finally got the invoice for it. It's on line 63, St. Croix Playgrounds. So the Eagles specifically donated the $2,500 in order to get that special mat for Eastside Park.
So there's an action to accept the money,
Prior.
and then there's an action to pay the company for the matting.
But the
But wasn't-
donation was from the Lions, and
Right.
now this is from the Eagles, I thought it said.
I see what you're saying.
So to me, it looks like there's $5,000 that we've received between the Lions and the Eagles.
Right.
And did we get 2 sets of mats, or,
Yeah, just those same related 2,500 that was donated.
So that really should say Lions Club?
Lions instead of Eagles.
It was the Eagles.
It was the Eagles?
Yeah, we'll go back and look. And
Yep,
just-
Yeah,
just make
okay,
sure.
yeah.
well, just clarify, I guess, or did the Lions donation go through the Eagles, or I'm just curious how, just to clarify where we're at, so that it's not $5,000 that's donated, and if it
Right.
is, it'd be great to do another set somewhere if we're able to do that.
That's a good point, though. I remember, Jeff, last month, that it was the Lions, it's clearly.
Yeah, yeah. It was
yeah,
the Lions, there
donation.
was discussion on the
Yep.
memo of the,
Mhm.
of the check, so,
We'll double check on it was just one $2,500 donation.
okay,
Okay, I assume that, but just to clarify, or, thank you.
thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have no petitions, requests, and communications. Ordinances and resolutions. We have a resolution approving an independent fee estimate for the airport apron reconstruction and expansion project.
Yeah, I think you've been through these before. We're required by the FAA when we do certain projects to get an independent estimate of what the engineer's costs would be for doing a specific project. And so we reach out to an engineer that has no ties whatsoever to the city or to the airport. And then they'll give us an estimate of what they would charge, and then I'll get an estimate from our airport engineers, what they would charge, and then I review them, and if they look like they're okay, then we can go ahead and use our engineer. If they're not okay, then we have to go back and we have to do something different. But typically, engineers are fairly close with how they're charging for services for different projects and stuff like that, especially when it comes to the federal government and the FAA. So this is a proposal by this engineering firm to do the estimate for us, and I'm recommending that the city council approve it.
I can't imagine that there's a whole lot of work that goes into that part of it, because it's only $3,000, but
Right.
it is what it is. We're following the rules. I will make a motion to approve the resolution approving an independent fee estimate for the airport apron reconstruction and expansion project.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Enlighten me on, is this a continuation of something we've been working on, or I thought we were concluding our work out there?
That's the last piece. So the
This
last
is the
piece
last
of
piece of
the
the-
airport, we're putting in the 100 low lead tank. And actually they did some concrete work on that. So, and the tank came in from Westmore. But the last piece is to redo the airport apron and to do an expansion on it. So there's gonna be make it a little bit bigger to help facilitate what's going on at the airport because of the new runway extension. So this is all part of another grant that we got. It's not part of the runway extension. And then we also did a grant project where we did crack filling and sealing of the taxiway.
Okay.
So
That
this
was the
is-
taxiway. I was assuming that
this-
was,
this
that
is
the
the-
crack filling was on the apron, but that was the taxiway.
No, that was the taxiway. So
Okay.
this is, yeah.
This is on the apron, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
So they'll expand it out, and they can do that now because the grass runway is no longer there. It's no longer part of the airport operations.
And with a longer runway, we would anticipate having bigger planes and probably needing a little more.
A little more,
On
a
the
little bit
apron.
more room.
Yeah.
And then there's been the discussion in the past about the possibility of adding more hangar space. And that's how a lot of this got started. Well, now you're gonna have to kind of reconfigure how things are being done out there. So that's what this piece is.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? We'll have a roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Phillipson,
Yes.
Waller,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Nervies,
Yes. And we only have one of these, even though we have two of them in our packet, which threw up a little question mark in mine when I was looking at it. It's like, why? But anyway, okay. So we're moving on to B, resolution approving a new 4-year agreement with the Stevens County for city attorney services.
Yeah, so we have an agreement with Stevens County. Aaron's employed by Stevens County as an attorney, along with the assistant attorney and the secretary, and you also have an advocate for
Victim witness coordinator?
victim witness coordinators. And so this is the agreement that we have, rather than going out and hiring our own private attorney, who would be on an hourly basis for every single thing that we do. We just have a contract with the county to provide time with the whole city county attorney operation up there. And this is a new 4-year deal that Aaron provided for me, and I'm recommending that we go ahead and do it. There's a adjustment in the first year, and then it's 3% after that. And the one thing I would tell you is that We learned a little bit about this in the last few months, but you probably have no idea all the things that Aaron's working on in the background. And at the same time, I can tell you that I can text him, I can send him an email whenever I have a question, whenever I need something, and he responds to me. And I don't know that was my experience in the past when you had a private attorney who was working on private legal issues. And so it works really well to have that in place. And I think the money's well worth it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Blaine. I did see that adjustment of 8.7% the first year, and then it goes to 3% the following 3 years, I guess it would be. So thanks for pointing that out. And that adjustment is for what exactly? Not that you're not worth it.
Well, this year, as you know, with inflation, things have gone up, and the county's taken a big hit with that in their budget. So I try to keep this contract in line with other things that we're doing at the county. And we're anticipating next year too that there's going to be a significant, more than the usual increase in employee pay raise for the adjustment for, the annual pay adjustment. We're looking probably at like 6.5% next year. So this number, I'm trying to accommodate that so that it goes in line with what the county's doing.
Okay. Thank you. I'll move on that resolution approving a new 4-year agreement with the Stevens County for city attorney services.
I will second.
Okay, any further discussion? I'd just like to point out, and we get to see Aaron once in a while at the meeting, so I think that's a good
Once a
thing.
month.
Any other discussion? We'll have roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Littleton,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Sully,
Yes.
Waller,
Yes.
Fairby,
Yes. We have a resolution approving an airport farmland lease with MTM Farms LLC for 2023.
Yeah, and this is, it stays at the same price. And one of the things I indicated in my memo is that now we no longer have a grass runway, but with the removal of the grass runway, there were also issues with restrictions and things like that had to be put in place with the improvements that are at the airport. And really, I think this is probably the agreement that we want to do to hold over what we're doing with renting it out to the current farmer for another year. At one point, I talked about the possibility of maybe bidding this back out again, to see there are other farmers that farm land around the airport and may be interested in farming the land here. And the one thing that we did do is we changed the per acre charge that we had for it, and we changed the arrangements to be more like, and this was done I think 2 years ago, to be more like normal farm land rentals. So this set $140 an acre, but it sets for approximately 100 acres. And then what happens now is, because technology is there to be able to figure out exactly what the acreage is with GPS and those kind of things, what we do is we get together with MTM Farms, and they will work with us so that we know and understand exactly how much land they're farming, and that's what they pay us for the exact acres. And the interesting thing about this is that there's prep work that has to be done in the fall as you're going in, depending on what you're going to do with that land in the future. And luckily, we got all the mapping and everything done so that it was officially taken off. The farmland was, or the grass runway was taken off the airport layout map, so that we could go ahead and let the farmer know that they could start tilling some of the grass runway up. So this is, I'm anticipating next year that we might look at we'll know exactly what's there and how it's being used, and we may want to bid it out again, but I'm recommending we just do this agreement for 1 more year. And we've had great luck with them farming our land around there. They know how to work around the airport.
I will move on a resolution approving an airport farmland lease with MTM Farms LLC for the year 2023.
I'll second.
Any comments or further discussion on this resolution? We'll have roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Waller,
Yes.
Selby,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Tillotson,
Yes.
Mayor Heath.
Yes. Finally, we have a resolution approving a building inspector contract with Mike Jacobson for 2023, or at least through August.
Yeah, and there is no increase in the price from 2022. Mike and I have been talking off and on for actually a couple of years. Originally, you might recall that Mike worked for the city of Benson, and then the city of Benson wanted to go a different direction with building inspection. The manager there, his son was the manager in Montevideo, and they wanted to work out a deal there. And so we just brought him on as a contracted service provider for us, and that's worked really well for us. He does a very good job. I think he's well liked by the contractors. I haven't run into any problems with him, but he did come in and say that he's planning on retiring, and next August is what he's shooting for. But he likes Morris. He really likes Morris, and he said, "I'm not just going to walk out. If you don't have anybody, I'll work with you until you find somebody." And I know Benson's trying to find somebody now. They have a new city manager, and I've talked to that city manager. Appleton's trying to find somebody. So I think we're going to try to figure out maybe how to work together with other cities to be able to do this. But this will get us through when he's going to retire, and then beyond a little bit until we find somebody. But he didn't raise the price for next year.
Lane, I like that we're talking with the Benson and Appleton. It is building inspector, is there anything like that in the county?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
'Cause they
Actually,
don't-
I've been talking with the engineers, because it's, Lakes Country Service Cooperative was doing some stuff with, building inspection. I think some of the engineering firms are starting to look at that. I don't know if you guys are, Chuck. But it's just it's one of those technical things that not anybody can do it. You can't just hire somebody. They have to have the skill set to be able to pass the certifications to be able to inspect. And Mike has all of the he's one of the most certified inspectors in western Minnesota, because he can do everything. He can do hospitals and clinics and everything that needs to be done. But whether or not Lakes Country might have somebody, whether or not we find somebody, it could be that we find somebody that's got a license that wants to do contract work like Mike. We'll try to figure it out.
Yeah, and we're used to not having a full-time person, so.
Right, we just had him 2 days a week.
Yeah, so.
But he loves coming to Morris because Morris has things going on. He's always busy with building projects. Every time you turn around, somebody else. Right now, the hospital's looking at possibly doing something again, and that's what he likes. He likes being busy with that kind of stuff.
Great.
Is he currently employed by anyone else?
He works for probably 3-4 other cities, yeah.
Okay, so.
But he's not an
fitting in the
employee of
part-time.
any city right now.
Okay.
We certainly feel that we get our time with Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he, typically it's Tuesdays and Thursdays that he's here. But if he has to inspect something on a Monday, he'll come down and inspect it on a Monday. And that's very important, especially if somebody's pouring concrete or doing a plumbing inspection or whatever it is.
Right.
So he's very accommodating that way.
Yeah, he's a good guy to work with too, so.
Well, I'll move on that resolution approving a building inspector contract with Mike Jacobson for the 2023, January 1st to August 31st.
I will second that. Any further discussion?
And I will add to your comment, the contractors, the people working with him have heard nothing but positive coming back from working with Mike.
Yeah.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, it is. It's very good.
I mean, to do it right, but yet working with,
Yep. You can certainly relay that to Mike Plain. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, we'll have roll call vote on the resolution, please.
Councilmember Selby,
Yes.
Wallers,
Yes.
Goodson,
Yes.
Miller,
yes.
Mayor Reese.
Yes. City managers report.
Maybe I'll just throw it out for questions if anybody has any questions. I don't know if I want to specifically get into each one of these. Maybe one really interesting note is, as far as I know, nobody's filed any action in district court on special assessments. And Whitney informed me that we had 142,000 of the 600 and what was it, 80? About 764,000, we had 142,000 prepaid. So they paid them off right away. And so that's, every once in a while when we're talking about selling special assessment bonds, now we have $142,000 that we have to invest at what? What are we getting at the banks now? Maybe,
It's getting up there.
it's starting to come up because the feds are upping their interest rates, but we're paying, X amount in interest on bonds, but we can only invest. At some point, the bond consultants will probably let us know and we could use some of that money to prepay bonds. But that's good, because really we didn't have any real objections to it. And then the only note that I would also make is that federal land is apparently not taxable when it comes to special assessments. And that's, you don't realize it sometimes if you have a lot of property in your community that's tax exempt and has special statuses. I believe the university's gonna pay off their assessment, but we were notified by the USDA that they were not gonna pay their assessment because they're exempt from it.
Did they send you did that attorney send you the cases he was referencing?
Yeah,
He did?
yeah, I think I forwarded it to you.
Oh, okay.
I can re-forward it.
Yeah, if you could send that, 'cause I just,
Yeah, and they're Minnesota cases.
sometimes there's some nuance there.
Yeah.
So are other exempt places, like the university and the post office, they pay theirs, but
Oh, I think the post office paid theirs the last time we did one. The university pays theirs because they're not exempt. So all Minnesota governments, local governments are not exempt from assessments. So cities, counties, townships, well, we wouldn't assess a township, but if somebody else had a building in our community, but it's the federal government.
they're
Okay, any comments or questions?
I got a lot of comments.
Okay, good.
It's ridiculous.
So that
I guess
would-
we'll make note of that for future, that we pay attention
that would
to,
spread
I mean,
around
that's
to all of us, and
40, almost
we get to
41,000,
pick up that tab.
over $41,000 that
Think we should
now
put
we
it
have to put into the city has to pay for that?
Yeah,
Yep.
the rest of us will.
Government employees that work there have to pay the
Well,
So that will be spread across the board at $41,000. We won't feel much pain from that, I don't think.
Right.
It'll just be a general tax situation for us. Any other questions on, Whitney's doing a fantastic job with FEMA. We're getting to the end, I think. And then at some point, we'll be able to let you know what the total of that is, and there's gonna be a bunch of money that's gonna be coming to the city to reimburse us for things that we normally would have had to pay for. So we'll be coming back to you and talking to you about that, and Yeah, the election went fantastic. Stacy did a very good job of coordinating all the people that needed to work on our part. And then the county did a wonderful job of running an election. It's not easy, putting together all the pieces to make that happen, but I think it went very smoothly.
Okay, any other comments or questions? To potential East 7th Street improvement project.
Yeah, so Jeff Kuhn is getting asked by the state of Minnesota whether or not we're interested in, I've mentioned this a couple of times at the city council meeting, whether or not we're interested in bumping up our project to 2023 instead of 2024, but we need to have a work session to sit down and talk about this East 7th Street project. And, you know, I provided you some information that Jeff put together, and you can see the amounts are very sizable. When you're talking about, you know, there's been questions asked about when are we gonna bring water and sewer out to different places out there. Well, it's not set up to really facilitate bringing water and sewer out to those places very easy. Just because of the nature of how separated out they are and distances and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, the first project, phase 1, would be to redo East 7th Street, probably going all the way out to the bypass, and then running water and sewer down East 7th Street, and then you would stub in connections into neighborhoods, and then neighborhoods could decide if they wanted to have water and sewer brought into their neighborhoods. Because that's the way it works. The city doesn't typically put water and sewer in for neighborhoods. When they're brand new, the developer would put them in and then turn them over to the city, and the city would take over maintenance of them moving forward. So this is something that I think we should sit down, we should talk fairly quickly about it. And Jeff's looking for direction from us, what we want to do. And we just got done talking about, you know, special assessments, and you can see that in phase 1, you know, you're talking almost 500,000 for sewer and over 500,000 for water, and where would that money come from? Where would we get it from? There are some things that the bond consultants talked to us about that we possibly could do, but that would be more of a general bond that everybody would pay for, you know, to put in that line, and then as neighborhoods connected, they would kind of pay back the cost of putting in that line, but then they have to pay their own cost of getting a line brought to their houses. You know, when you have wells and septic tanks, they're probably all in the backyards, I would guess. And, you know, how do you get from the main line to their houses and stuff? So the next step in this process is to sit down with Jeff Kuhn and talk about it and try to figure out what direction we want to go. This was talked about before, and it was put off, put down, you know, and, you know, the only difference now is that there's $1.6 million of federal money that can be used for the road, for the stormwater, for those items, but it can't be used for sewer and water. Whether or not we could go to the legislature and try to get them to free up some money, if we could borrow some money, you know, what would that look like? Interest rates are up high now. But the next step, what I'm suggesting is we try to figure out a time to sit down with Jeff Kuhn in a work session and just talk about it, how this would work.
Blaine, just a question. You alluded to that the state of Minnesota is communicating with Jeff about this specific project. Is it this specific project, or do any of the other projects we have on our list, would they be considered for this as well?
No, it's just this we've already asked the state of Minnesota watches over all the federal money that comes into the state, and so there's a big chunk of federal money that was going to be coming into the state, and so they are looking for projects, and this project's always been kind of our back burner big project that we're going to try to figure out. And I said it before, and I'll say it now. The only way this project gets done is if you have a big influx of outside money. like federal money. And when the time came for this federal project fund to be talked about, you know, we put in a request to get some of that federal money, but you can't use it for water and sewer. So we could literally rebuild that road completely, and it wouldn't cost us one penny, you know, because, and state aid money would help pay for it too. You know, the road part of it, just like with Columbia Avenue, a lot of that was done with state aid money. When we did Oregon Avenue, the storm sewer, the big storm sewer project we did, I think we got about $1 million of federal money. It was kind of that same process.
Well, here I see that he's estimating the road work 3.4 million, 1.6 million federal grant. I mean, that still leaves 1.8 million. Are we going to get that much from the state?
State aid.
You saying
So
that?
we get an allocation of state aid money every year, and then
Okay.
they kind of, they go back and forth building it up and then using it and doing those kind of things. And the state has more, it's like water and sewer is considered something different than roads and bridges and those kind of things.
Right. So most of that. So really, like you said, we're staring at about $1,027,000 for on an estimated cost of the water and sewer.
Yeah.
Out to those.
Yeah, and you can see there's only 19 properties that could connect up to that right away. Because there are houses along there, like your mom, you know, that could connect up to the water and sewer if you put it in right away, and we do an assessment on it.
Well, and I think that we could all benefit from taking a look at, looking at it this way as to what criteria do we want to set as a council for moving projects up? Just generally speaking, you know, if we're going to move a project from that we have on the 3 to 5 to 10 year plan, and then we're going to move this one up, I think as we look down the road, this probably will come before us again. So if we could all kind of come in to the meeting, I guess, if we decide to do that, with that mindset that, you know, what kind of criteria are we going to lay out? You know, is the road failing? Is it an immediate issue? Is it this, or this? You know, if we can establish some type of criteria moving forward, so when we get this thrown on our lap again, or we have an opportunity, I guess it'd probably be the right way to say that, we can just fall back to those certain criteria. And, you know, and I imagine every project probably stands on its own, but I think generally speaking, we should have, I think, some general guidelines to follow would help us, I think, make a decision to that end.
But we have talked about the 7th Street project for quite a while, that we need, but there was no funding, and that maybe we need to move forward with having a plan in place, and so if there was funding available, we'd be able to get in on it, because we would have the plan.
It's just hard when you think about the road itself. I mean, the road itself is functional, you know, we do have other streets that are on our list that are
But
more
it's not-
marginal than this, so.
Yeah, but this funding is not for those, correct?
Right.
It's
You can't use it for anything
specifically
else.
for this 7th Street project. Because, yeah, I agree with you, Kevin, that in future, but this funding would be just for this 7th Street. So it's either we try to use it or we don't do anything with it, and then what? Then we just let it go? So, I don't know, I mean, I
We
get.
don't know going forward what's gonna be available.
Yes.
If
Yep.
it's available to us in 23,
Yep.
we know what we can get coming out in the future, we don't know.
Yeah,
so.
it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, because there's some really quick options. One is, do you want to move it up to 2023? I don't know how we do that. So, but they want to know. I mean, they keep kind of hounding Jeff on it, so he needs to let them know. Now, you get done with that decision, do you want it for 2024? So now you got a bigger discussion. So it's like, do you throw away 1.6 million of federal money and all the state money that would go with the road project and do nothing on 7th Street? Or do you let them know that we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do that project? And we could do that actually next year without water and sewer again. You know, and then people are gonna be upset because we didn't do water. You know, there's this, I've had people talk to me a number of times, and it's like, when are you gonna bring us the water and sewer you promised us? And it's like, nobody promised you water and sewer. Actually, if you look at the agreements during annexation, it was the opposite of that. There were promises that we would not force you to take water and sewer. And so realistically, it's the first time we had a chance to look at what does this actually mean and what does it actually cost to do what everybody's talking about doing. And that's a massive amount of money to include. You know, the first question Ryan Mogard asked was, well, what about a sewer lift station to get all that sewage to get to where it needs to go? So it's a good chance to sit down with the engineer and he can talk to you more about how all this stuff works. Because maybe, you know, if we're not gonna do water and sewer, then we could bump up the road project and then have a brand new road built by the federal and state government, but.
And explain to me one more, I don't know why I'm having a hard time understanding this, but why is that money, that money earmarked just for 7th Street, not other projects on our list?
Because it's federal funding and we asked for it for 7th Street and they
Oh,
said.
so we asked specifically for the
7th
funding
Street.
for that
If we would've
project?
asked for it for any other
Okay,
city streets, they wouldn't have ever put it on the list.
It-
7th Street is a main artery in Morris, and
yeah,
that's
I
why,
understand that.
and it's a state aid road, you know, and that's important to understand.
And that ask has been out there for a while.
Okay,
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's been
it
out there
wasn't-
for several years,
Yeah.
because they do their
Yeah.
planning like 4
I
years
didn't know we had
out.
requested that specific money, I know we've talked about it, like Kim had mentioned, I didn't know we had a specific request for it.
Yeah,
Where does
Okay.
this project start?
well, it would,
7th Street.
it would probably start, so water ends, right on the edge of Eagles baseball field. That's where water ends.
The townhomes.
Where the line drive is there,
Right.
and sewer
Yeah,
ends,
backwards, that's
I
the
think
townhomes.
halfway through
So, yes.
the
they are
townhome.
and have city
Oh, there's a
So-
light.
on 7th Street.
Does
that
the,
goes.
does the estimate for the water and sewer just bring it to the neighborhood, or is that right in front of everybody's house?
That just brings it down 7th Street.
That just brings it down 7th Street.
That's it.
That doesn't get it down the cul-de-sac to the one to the end
No,
either.
no.
Oh.
So it'd be stubbed, it'd be stubbed into
Oh.
each one of those neighborhoods.
And that's 50
You know-
grand, that's 50 grand a piece if you're splitting above 19 parcels.
Right,
Just to have it stubbed to there, what's it good, then you have to take out your road. Well,
No,
you'd have to redo your whole neighborhood road to get it stubbed into all of the individual places, correct? If I'm
Or you
not
bring it-
mistaken.
Well, or you bring it in the back.
you bring it in the backyards.
So you gotta bring it in the backyards?
Well,
That's
because
where
that's
they're hooked up.
probably where they're all.
That's
at.
true, I didn't think of that. That's not so bad. I was thinking the other way. I
You
was
don't
like,
have to tear
oh,
up the road.
Well, and the hardest, you know, there was one of the property owners wanted to do a project to connect themselves up, and they wanted to go across the townhome property. And the townhome said, no, you're not going across our property to, you know, because you could run a long sewer line or water line.
What
You know.
what is our outreach past our city limits to, how far out past our city limits do we have any sort of control about what happens to the properties, or if they're doing, you know, it seems to me that.
For zoning, it's,
But what seems to me is what's happened in a lot of these things, and I lived in one of those at one time, is that we're putting these people are building these properties right next to the city limits, but not in the city limits.
Right.
So when you put in everybody, and that's, oh, it's cheaper. Hey, we don't have to do this. We don't have to pay taxes. You have your own water and blah blah blah. Well, this is just a never-ending cycle of
Right.
19 people. Only 25% of them
Right.
want to get hooked up at any given time, so they can't. So they put in their septic system. They're fine for 15, 20 years, and then their next 25, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, what is our city outreach to say, so far out, if you're going to build a development within a certain amount of distance from the city limits, you have to bring city water and sewer to it, or some of these things, because I think that we have to really seriously look at this for future growth because of, I mean,
Yeah.
I lived here a long time. You see what inside the town, I mean, the houses are getting a lot older, and we're, moving to the outside edges, and this is an easy way to all of a sudden, hey, let's build a, right here, you're not in the tax load, blah, 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 and then all of a sudden, poof, city says we're bringing you in, and now we have this problem with the city water and
That's a
sewer.
planning commission thing, I think, isn't it, Blaine?
Well, there's orderly annexation agreements that are in place.
But weren't some of these developments in the city limits before they, or not? None
No.
of them were. None of them
They
were
probably
city-
weren't originally, they could have been.
But I mean, you're right, Brian. It's like, what is the big plan here? When there's a development and it's, we need to look at putting that in right away and saying to the developer, because that's how other
Well-
bigger communities do it. I mean, they
Right.
don't put in a development and go, okay, you guys are on your own now. They put in the streets, the city, the
Right.
water, the sewer,
I
and then
think-
bill it back in there.
I think the
So-
last development was this Riley's Edition, Riverside,
Yeah.
River, whatever it's called. And I think that was in the city, so we
There was-
required them
Right.
to have water and sewer, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So-
down off of Green River.
Right, yeah, off Green River
yeah.
Road,
Well,
yeah.
Hillside too was.
Hillside was
Hillside
not.
was long before
Yeah, it
that,
was.
Hillside was.
and that was not in the city when that
Right.
was developed.
And then that got annexed in, but
Got
whether or not
annexed
it was in our area, so what I can tell you is this, when I got here in 2007, that map was not done.
Right.
And the reason it was not done is because they couldn't come to agreement with township people. And so then I sat down with all the township people, some of them I grew up with, and it's like, what's the problem here? And it's like, well, hunting was a problem. There's a problem with being able to keep your cattle. There's a problem, we ran into this when dealing with, there's this fear that you're gonna take over and you're gonna put me out of business or whatever and stuff like that. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. At the same time, there's orderly annexation agreements where you're not allowed to build a house without 40 acres
Yeah.
out there in the country. And yet they're doing it. And why are they doing it? Well, townships don't have Aaron Jordan sitting next to them that they can go to and get, you had to go to mock trial,
But I think the thing that I'm getting at is that there's got to be some sort of oversight with the developer, because it's sold to a citizen that, I had a place in Hillside, and it was sold, hey, you're out of the city, your taxes are a lot less, you got your own well and your septic, you're good,
Yeah.
yada yada, and all of a sudden, boom, a couple years later, you're going to get annexed in, and you have 50 grand in assessments, and then all of a sudden you're paying city taxes, and it's like, I think that people are brought into that by these developers,
Right.
and it's like, no, I think if you're within, I'm just asking that is there anything we can do as a city that says, if you're within so far and you want to develop, there's got to be some sort of something where you've got to be able to let your people know that you could be annexed in at some point in time, and this could be potential costs for you, or can we have an ordinance or some sort of something to bind them to bringing them water and sewer right off the bat? I don't know.
that's something
Good
to
questions
look
to ask, Brian, because, we've talked about purchasing more land for industrial development, so, you bring up a good point.
Well, and that's why when we developed that yellow area on the top of that map over there, as residential property, so now we have water and sewer on one end of that, and we have water and sewer on the other end of that. And so if anybody ever wanted to develop, even outside the city limits, we have authority to say, no, you can't.
Right.
That outside line of that map is our authority to say, no, you can't do what you're planning on doing. So you're gonna have to bring water and sewer into them if you wanna develop it, otherwise don't approve the plat, and that's hard to do when you have a landowner that wants to sell their land. But,
Well, that's the hard decision that we're taxed with, but it's
Right.
also what's best for the whole.
but it just
The whole
makes
of the
no sense.
community.
And I love the fact that people wanna have a hobby farm, and they wanna be out in the country and they wanna have horses and stuff like that, but you gotta have so many acres to be able to do that. You can't do it on a hillside addition lot, that's a residential subdivision that got built with wells and septic tanks, which I don't get it.
Well, that's what I mean. It's the contractors that
Yeah.
put those together and stuff, and there needs to be some sort of, because the
Stipulation.
people that buy those places and the ones that are in your addition down there and the two on 7th Street are all in these predicaments where they got annexed in and they were never, the city doesn't have to bring them the water and sewer. We could, but under our rules of the city, it's an assessment. It's not a general tax.
There you go. Yeah.
And so,
it's not-
but people get into those situations and they don't understand
Right.
that. And also,
That's the
then it's
unfair
also,
part.
now it comes to them and there's this added cost and they're frustrated and they're upset with the city when, quite frankly, they should be upset with the people that put up the subdivision that they moved into, knowing full well that pretty likely that you're that close to city, one of these days you're gonna be in the city.
Right.
So I mean, I'm just saying that we need the foresight to look at those things.
Well, and
going
I think there
forward.
might be an opportunity to even go back to the state and say, hey, here's some stuff that we don't have, it's just like with our water plant, we don't have the financial ability to remedy this problem.
Right.
So, it is a problem.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that it's not just Morris. This happens in a lot of places.
I
where
would
they're trying to
completely believe that
figure
it
out
does.
how, because development took place outside the city, now all of a sudden, if you go down to the Twin Cities, people,
Well, of course it is.
people are getting kind of eaten up by cities all over the place,
Yeah.
but how do you run a water and sewer line, 500 feet just to get to one house?
Well, and
Right.
but also in our situation, we assess. It's not on the
Right.
general tax roll. I mean,
Right.
we've never started that way, and there's no way that we can go to that way.
Right.
As what we're doing now. There's just no way around that.
Yeah, you
know,
can't start over.
You can't start over. It would be terrible. But other cities or bigger cities, it's on the general tax roll. So it is a little bit different that way as they're bringing them all in. But for us, it's near impossible to absorb that, that cost to the city.
They maybe have more thorough, comprehensive plans for development than we obviously had. Blaine, though, to Ryan Mogart's point, that lift station, is Jeff Kuhn figuring that into this whole thing too, or not? Because that's.
Oh, yeah.
that
Well,
is
that's actually
required.
in one of the phases
Phase
on there.
2.
Phase 2 is
That's
the,
your blue line, phase 2.
Did I see, I must have missed that.
Oh, here it is.
But your other option is to put it in your rates for your water and sewer, and that's some of the comments Blaine has
Right.
made over the years when they come and look at our water and sewer rates, and they're like, "Oh, you're so cheap," and it's
Oh,
like,
yeah,
well,
I
no,
see.
we assess for the improvements instead of charging it on
Right.
your water and sewer
Right,
rates. And then there was something done with either the county or the state mandating at least a 5 acre. I think, well, a couple properties are getting built now
right,
are 5 acre lots, which should cut down on some of that, but they actually have city water sewer going down to those.
yeah, they
correct?
ran their own
So
to their property. They paved their own
Phase 2.
road.
how about the property that's not in our city limits, that's down on the end of 7th Street? What'll happen with that?
Like the trailer court?
Yeah, well, it's gonna be up to the property owners, what they wanna do, because, if a group got together and said, hey, we wanna come in and we want city water and sewer, then we would look at that, because that's the way it would work, but we can't force them. I mean, we just went through, we have somebody who's on a piece of land inside the city limits that we didn't do anything with,
Right.
Yeah, and some of them want to and some of them do not
Right.
want to sell the property.
That's the hardest part
They need
about
to
the
make
whole
the
thing is
improvement on
that.
their septic system or get hooked up to city. And yeah, they're between a rock and a hard spot. And then their neighbor down the road, 2 doors, when you run into him, I'd be damned if you're gonna hook me up. My
Right.
system works fine. I don't need it unless you're gonna give it to me.
Yeah, usually we hear from people, like Les Meister, when they're having a problem with
Yeah.
a septic system and they don't wanna replace it, and it's like, well, what are you gonna do now? And we had that same problem down on the south side where there's probably 4 or 5 of them that would have signed a petition to have water and sewer brought to them, but it wasn't the whole neighborhood.
Right.
It's
And
never going to be.
realistically,
No, it's
realistically, I would have, if I could have got 80% of them or 70% of them, I probably would have came back to the city and said, let's just do it. And then you could defer assessments so that at some point, when the next time their well goes bad or the next time their septic system goes bad, now they have to hook up to the city system. They don't have a choice. And we do have some rules in our ordinances that do that. If it's within so many feet of you, you gotta connect up to it. But not as long as you have a good well and a good septic system.
Yeah, we've discussed this many times, and I know, as I remember, part of that discussion always was, you know, if there's a neighborhood or whatever that
Right.
doesn't want to hook up yet, we allow them to amortize out their working well and working septic. Not to put in a new well or put in a new septic, because then at that
Right.
time you gotta hook up.
Yeah.
But if we have a hookup there, you know, at 7th Street or wherever, you know, that's when that bullet has to be bit.
Yeah, it's just too bad, you know, we're faced, I mean, we've been, like you said, we've been talking about this for a while, and given the current economic situations we're in with high inflation, high costs of everything, I mean, this project was expensive to begin with, and it's just kind of, almost, overwhelming.
It's never gonna get better. It keeps
Right.
going
No,
up every
right.
year. I mean, that's,
But to Blaine's point, do we leave, you know, I think we do need to have a work session, talk to Jeff and discuss this thoroughly.
Yeah,
But do we
me too.
leave, I don't wanna call it free money, but that's what it is, the federal money, on it and just forget about it? Or do we wanna put that to use and down the road someday, it's gonna be there? I mean,
What's the timeline on it? I'm sorry, is it good just for this year, or,
No, they wanna know now if we wanna bump it up to 2023.
but it, so it wouldn't be there in 2024, is kind of what you're saying?
Otherwise, our project, the 1.6 million is on the table for 2024. That's actually where it's sitting right now, and they wanna bring it forward into 2023.
Okay.
You know, otherwise, if we say no, then they're gonna expect that there's a project done in 2024.
So what do we need to do, Mayor? Is that, let's, we're gonna beat this thing to death, and
Yes.
we're not
Yeah,
even be in
right.
the situation
Yeah,
here. So let's
session
put
in
together
December.
a date for, yeah, I think we should.
I'll reach out to you and
We
we'll try
reach
to
out,
find.
maybe we
yeah.
can, next meeting, we set a meeting, or do we have to make a meeting or a motion to have one?
I would make a motion to direct me to set up a work session with the engineer to talk about, and then I'll coordinate with you on a date.
I will do that.
Do we have to have the date in front of a?
We
Meeting?
might have to, but
Yeah.
let me,
First
I
we need
just,
to
this was
get
the
it
first,
coordinated.
the first step was to see if you're interested in having a work session.
Yes.
I am.
You know, because
I'd
we
like
need
to get something done
we need to
as
talk
soon as
about
we
this,
can,
so.
like in December, to have a work session,
So-
meet with the engineer.
Let's get it done.
Blaine, go ahead, try and set something up
Yeah.
as convenient for us.
Make that a motion?
I do, I will.
Yep.
I'll
All right.
second it.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Okay, good luck, Blaine. Get her set up.
Let the fun
And we
begin.
have other business, city manager performance review.
Yeah, I don't know if one of the,
Yeah, Kevin or Kim, you wanna talk to this at all? Where we're at on it?
Well, I think we're ready to actually have the review. So this would be the format we're using. We just came up with this. We looked at several different cities and their manager positions, city, however they called it. And so this is what we came up with. And so it's more of a two-way process, because, you know, more than just writing a number, we want discussion out of this and comments, and that's why there's the questions for thought on there to help you think about what it is that you're looking for when you fill this out. And again, this is more of a communication tool between the council and the city manager. I think we looked at doing this twice a year.
twice a year, and then the other part of that is that this is the performance review part of it, but, it's probably a good idea to have at least a quarterly meeting with the city manager, just to talk about issues, you know, and, you know, one of the things that we talked about too is just to maybe explain things and how they work and stuff like that. So at least once a quarter, having that communication between the city manager and the city council is a good idea.
In a work session or a
Yeah.
closed door.
Well, you could have, that
Council
could be in a
there.
work session just to talk about, things that are, depending on what's happening and it might be a good, formula for establishing a time frame where you would get together to even talk about stuff like we're talking about. That
Right.
this would be a opportunity to, and then one of them is gonna be the budget work session. And that worked out really well with all the department heads there and had a chance to kind of find out what everybody was thinking and talk about stuff.
So where are we at on the performance review? I like this. I like this format. It certainly is a great place to start. I'm not saying this is the end all, but
Well, and I don't think we are either. It's just like
Yeah.
we need a place to start
Right.
and
So this is just something that you're kind of showing to us. It's not anything that, are we gonna be getting something that's gonna be handwritten or emailed or something like
well,
that? Is
this
that-
would be the format we're using.
Okay.
I think is what we came up with,
Right.
unless you see something that's like.
No,
oh,
I like it too, but it's,
Yeah.
but this is not it.
No,
there's
you're not
some
gonna fill it
formula
out
sent
on
out.
here.
Okay.
But-
All right, I just wanted to double check.
You send
We
a
can-
hard copy in our packet, probably.
we can
something,
make
right?
that decision.
Yeah, I think the
When
big
this
thing,
is it.
I think the big thing was, does this look okay? If it looks okay,
Right.
then
I
what we'll
like
do
that.
is we'll start the process and the
Right.
process would be, we'd send it out to everybody. And then we'd have to establish a time and a place where we would come back and sit down and talk about it. And we could maybe do that at the next council meeting,
Right.
just set a
Well,
time.
I-
and
As
place.
far as setting a
Yeah,
time.
so you'd have a review, performance review session.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve the performance review format as shown forth here. Just to get it in and there that this is what we'd like to, that we're approving what's been put in front of us.
Okay.
I will second, and yes, to move forward with getting a hard copy to everybody and to make progress, to sit down and have our meeting.
Okay, this motion is to approve the
Format.
basic format. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, having said that now we have an official annual performance review format. Do we want to set something up that say, hey, we want this in our hands, we're gonna get it done in this amount of time, we're gonna meet about it on this date? Do we want to do that?
Do you
Yes.
want
I
to
mean-
do it before the end of the year, or do we want to start the new year?
Oh, the goal was to do it before the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's what we talked about.
Yeah.
All right.
Ooh,
If
I
we
mean-
can.
I mean-
why not?
Rather than
You don't
wait until
have
the
to.
next meeting, I think we should
Just set it now.
do
Set
that
it.
now, and
Okay,
I think we're all, I know we're all busy, but we're all, pretty well-equipped to get things done, and I don't think the turnaround time needs to be extremely long.
Yeah, and it's,
No.
it's short, the thing that Kim and I kind of liked about it too is it's not a 5-page thing.
Right.
It's concise, but
Right.
it's gonna draw, it's gonna solicit some conversation, and that's really what we're trying to get at.
That's a big part.
Right, that is a
Yes.
huge part.
It'll spark the conversation.
And
So-
is this something that we want to each do ourselves? Do we want to turn it in for some sort of tabulation, compilation, or do we just want to bring them to our work session and say, okay, here it is?
I think we did talk about that briefly, like, do we want somebody to tabulate and formulate, like, who said what, and then it's like, well, why don't we just start with bringing it?
Yeah, I-
So it's more of the discussion.
sure.
Yeah,
rather, I mean, we're pretty open about everything.
And the
so-
tabulation could occur
Right.
post-performance.
Yep.
I don't know that.
Yeah, right,
If
absolutely.
it's,
I don't
Just
know, I don't
if
know
you
that
need
you
to
have a
do that.
significant enough number of forms to
Right,
do a
Yeah.
tabulation that
Yeah,
makes any
exactly.
statistical
Yeah.
sense.
right.
It's a start, yeah, get us rolling and
Well, I think the idea of it is to come out of that with a clear set of goals, and direction. And that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. It's,
So-
and it's for the city manager, but it's also for us.
Yes.
For
So that when we
Yes.
come out of it,
For sure.
everybody's on the same.
Right.
Yep.
I personally think it's a lot more for the council than it is for the manager. I think that
Thank you,
being a
right.
member of the council for a few years, it's, you know, that connection has been hard to, has never been there. So that, you know, we're making one for the next boards and the next managers to, you know, not stumble along the way as the ones before us and we have. So I think it's actually better, a lot better for us, so. Are we looking for a date? Does everybody kinda, are we gonna do something?
I'm just looking, our next council meeting is December 13th and the 27th. So do we want to do something before the next council meeting?
Well, it's got a
And
lot of
and
time
have a
between now
work
and then.
session? It's quick,
I'm okay with
but
that.
like we talked about it.
It shouldn't take that long to fill this out.
No.
No.
I mean, when you look
No,
at
right,
it, it's pretty
right.
like, and
we've
again,
all-
the discussion is what's the most important piece of it.
Right.
I mean, you know, maybe we shoot for the Tuesday, the 6th or something like that, or, is that too, or do something a little
that's not.
closer?
No, it's just always the Tuesdays are.
Tuesday the 6th is next Tuesday.
Tuesdays are
No.
tough, but I'll,
2 weeks.
I don't
That would be
bother
2
me, I
weeks.
can do any day, I don't see anything else.
Doesn't work.
Anytime.
Is Thursday better?
Thursday?
Are you saying Tuesday?
I
No?
just got basketball girls, so it's.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that Tuesday and Thursday?
Tuesdays and Thursdays are really hard, but that's okay, I'll do it, cause it's not a
Oh,
big
we
deal.
could, Monday's
Nope.
fine with me too, Monday doesn't.
Mondays?
Mondays works.
I don't mind Fridays.
Fridays at
It's
five.
winter time, come on.
Thank you guys, thank you, appreciate it.
Getting off the board now, or getting off now, he's a comedian. Fridays, let's do
Uh,
It don't bother me either one.
I'm flexible.
Monday or pick a Monday.
should we do the 5th?
I'm okay with it.
We can do the
Yeah.
5th, or we can do the 12th, right? And if you want more time, or you don't want, the 5th is fine with me too.
5th works better for me.
All
I'm
right,
good
then
with the
that's done.
5th. And do you want to do it any earlier than 5:15, should say 4?
It's up to you guys.
It works for me. I'm
4 is
fine with
fine.
4
make it
o'clock
4.
on the 5th. Okay,
Okay, you wanna make that a motion?
I will so move that we meet together to go over the, whatever we're going over here, performance review on Monday, December 5th at 4 PM. So bring it with you at that point, a filled out, so we'll have to get something sent to us?
Yeah, we can.
Is everybody capable of printing, or so we can get it electronically, or?
Yes.
Yep.
Everybody's okay?
Mhm.
Yep.
Printing, or you want a hard copy?
Printing is fine.
If I have issues, I'll
Just get it
I'll
hard
make it
copy.
work, yeah.
Okay,
I'm
so when
still
do we
in the
want
Stone
that?
Age, we got,
When do we want that?
Mm,
Today's the 22nd, we can get it anytime between now and.
The electronic, we could do it tomorrow.
Yep, watch,
Yeah.
yeah, pick and send
Yeah,
it
we'll send it
electronically.
out.
Okay,
Because
All right, great.
it's just a file.
we're gonna meet here, or
I can
City
actually.
Hall?
print the one out. I can print the
Probably,
one out
I
from
would
here.
say, probably
Oh,
at
that's-
City Hall in the conference
yeah,
room.
I like that.
You just email it to
Conference
We
room
can
at
sit
City Hall.
around a big
Yeah.
table and, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to meet on, December 5th at 4 o'clock for the initial city manager annual performance review. And-
biannual,
Biannual,
Well,
Semi-annual?
semi-annual.
or
Semi-annual.
semi, thank you.
Okay, city manager performance review, how about
They're
that?
good.
That's
And,
it.
okay, yeah, Blaine will get that sent out, and we will take it from there. And we have a motion, we have a second?
Mhm. I think we did already.
Yep.
Any further,
Brian and Jeff.
we didn't vote on it yet.
No.
Yeah, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, finally, we have waiving fees, waiving fees. The Stevens County Daycare Pod project.
Yeah, so this, we actually, when we started working with the county on this, they were looking for more, probably water and sewer and things like that. And we actually met with them and the joint city-county commission on sharing services. And the conclusion of that was it just didn't seem like anybody really knew what was going on yet at the time, I think is the best way to describe it. But they went ahead, we had, Jeff Kuhn did just a little bit of preliminary looking at, what our infrastructure was and stuff like that. And then they wound up hiring an engineering firm to do the engineering and do the water and sewer and all that kind of stuff. But we haven't had really any involvement in this project at all, even though daycare dilemma is a major issue for the city and the county and everybody, to try to get workers and stuff. And so my recommendation to you is that we waive any fees that we might have for building inspection and sewer and water connection, to the system as our contribution. It really doesn't involve with us writing a check for anything. It's just, we're not gonna collect a fee, and it's not setting a precedent because it's not necessarily for the county, it's for the daycare issue. That's why we're doing it. So that's what this recommendation is to waive the fees.
I agree with you. I think I'll make the motion to waive the fees associated with the Stevens County Daycare Pod project. All fees.
I will second that.
Good, I think that's the right thing to do. I did have a question that came in my mind when I read through this. Now, is that entity building thing that they're doing, is that gonna be county owned?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
So they won't pay any taxes?
No, probably not.
Okay.
Unless they sell it, and that might be something,
If
they've
it's
talked a
rented
little
out
bit
to
about
private
that. But
businesses
it's,
though,
yeah, it's gonna be, they're gonna lease it to people to come in and do daycares.
Yeah.
So it'll be a tax exempt, well, yeah, I can't say that for certain, because there's certain, like the airport,
yeah, if
our
it's a business
our
that they're,
farmland is not tax exempt because it's the city.
Right.
It's taxed.
They'll have to pay tax.
I think they'll have
So-
to pay tax
so
on
depending on
being
what the
there,
use of
collecting
it
a
is.
rent on the properties, to a private business, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's gonna be fun to see that thing
Oh,
get
yeah.
put up and see how it works.
Yeah. Any further discussion on waiving the fees? Will, all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Finally, we have Morris Tree Steward's letter from Urban Forestry Outreach and Research Lab, part of the University of Minnesota.
Yeah, it's a nice shout out to the Morris Tree Stewards for 5 years of service. So,
A group of 60
Good.
community members.
good job.
Yes. Cool. Do we need to do anything with that, or is it just information?
No, I just wanted to bring it to you. I did give a copy of that to Sue, and I think they probably talked about it at the tree board meeting.
Good. Okay, any other information needs to come to the council?
I just was curious again, I think we kind of touched on it last meeting about filling, Councilmember Waller's vacant seat come, when again is the deadline for that?
Well, I actually wrote
Get sworn in.
a blog for the newspaper that I think it's gonna go in next Tuesday, because other people have asked about that, but, basically, the way the charter works is that, Councilmember Wallers will have to resign his seat as a council member so that he can take the seat as a mayor. And at that point, we'll have a resolution ready for the city council to declare a vacancy in a council member's seat. And then the city council has 30 days to fill it. There is no direction whatsoever in the charter how you do that. You have 30 days to fill it. If after that 30 days you don't make a selection and fill it, then the mayor has 10 days to fill it. So that's the process. You know, so it's totally up
Easy.
to
Easy choice.
the city council what to do with that.
So you don't have to do anything until next year?
That's right.
How do we find candidates? How do we discuss candidates? I mean, what is that? Is that in, do we need
That's
to
where it's
have
Well, I
a
think
public format for that?
Yeah, I think what'll happen is when the time comes for the swearing in and all that kind of stuff, you can sit down and have a discussion on what you wanna do. You know, you'll pass a resolution declaring a vacancy,
Right.
and then you can say, hey, what do we wanna do? You know, how do we wanna do this? And you know, there's all different kinds of ways of trying to figure it out, but.
But the seat will ultimately be appointed by the council.
Yes.
Yeah, until the next election.
Yeah.
For 2 years, yeah.
Just, yeah,
Well, the remainder of 23.
Be my 2 years.
Until the next
24.
election.
yeah, just till the next election, cause he'll be up in the
Right,
next one.
so it'll
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
4.
Yeah,
So
January 1st.
23 and 24.
Yeah, 24.
Oh, it's up 25?
It'll probably be till 25
December
because
31st.
the election is in
24,
24.
yeah.
Right.
Oh, I just lost
November.
that.
But we have, from previous experience, taken former council members, mayor, to fill in. Carol has come back and filled out, I think when Twig left. Candidates that have run for the office, so.
The charter doesn't address it.
No, it just says. that
Citizen
you'll
from the
appoint-
You'll have to
community, yeah.
discuss it.
But what we've done previously.
Is that something that really should be done in a work session, or does it matter?
No, well,
We could decide
I
that
mean,
too.
you
We
could-
could say all we have to do a January 1st that first Tuesday is declare that we have a vacancy. And then
right,
we have the 30 days and we can
And
just,
you
we
can
can do
figure
a
out-
closed session and figure out what we wanna do. And if we can after the 30 days, then the new mayor Kevin would get his, just appoint, correct?
right.
So will that be January 3rd? Will be your first meeting?
I'd have to go back and look and just see
Because
what the first meeting of the new year is after an election. I think it's the,
I think it's always
think
the
it's
first
the
Tuesday,
first
very
Tuesday.
first Tuesday.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the 3rd.
I think it is too.
Okay, anything else? Good question, exciting time.
No.
Anything
Okay,
else?
I just thought it was, something that we needed to all think about, and
Were you clear on that then?
I am fairly clear on it, as clear as mud.
All right. Great, anything else? Meeting adjourned.